What if I told you that most of these nutritional headlines, the one governing government policy, diet books, even what your doctor tells you, is based on guesswork? Hi, my name's Tom, and this is my carnivore life. That's right, this data is flawed. And the reason that it's flawed is because these study groups or researchers hand out food frequency questionnaires and rely on people to remember what they've eaten as far back as a year ago in order to establish patterns to try and shape nutritional policy. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a hard time remembering what I ate or drank last Friday or Saturday, let alone a year ago. And yet this is the very data they're relying on to shape these guidelines. And one of the inherent flaws with this is people want to be good or seem good. So they're going to admit, yeah, candy bar here, soda there, some alcohol, and instead put down, oh, I ate a cup of vegetables, I ate asparagus, I ate broccoli. And then these researchers then take these questionnaires and try to establish patterns to show how the diet that people consume affects their health and their weight. And it's really a flawed system when you can't rely on the data, because you can't rely on people's memory and you can't rely on people's honesty. The only way to really know the effects of food on our bodies is to have what's called randomized control studies. And what these are studies that are done in a controlled environment where you control what people eat or drink. And you set up one group to eat the preferred diet and one group to eat the other type of diet. And then after a select amount of time, then you compare the two. But you don't just look at them or fill out questionnaires. You have to do blood work. You have to do lipid panels. These are things that you can't fake. You can't lie about those. They are what they are. And at the end of the study, you get a baseline of what's happening between the two groups. So the question is, why aren't these being done? Well, because it's expensive. And you add to that the findings may show that simply eating a clean diet eliminates the majority of health problems and the obesity that we have. Now you've affected the pharmaceutical company, the weight loss industry, and a number of other groups who rely on this patchwork of data to sell their products and services. So really, it's a deep hole. And to climb out of it, you really have to do your own research, and you have to really look at the actual data. Now, there's one study that stands out, which was the Oakland Naval study done back in, I believe it was 1953. And in the study, they controlled the food of veterans that were in the hospital. And what they found was the people who had a low-carb, high-fat diet were healthier. They lost more weight than other groups, including fasting groups, believe it or not, which I find somewhat amazing. But yeah, the people with the low-carb, high-fat diets had better overall health at the end of the study than the other groups had. So that's one that really has to lend some credibility to the low-carb, high-fat community because it was controlled. And, they didn't rely on questionnaires. So I really don't think that these sensationalized headlines coming out are reliable enough for us to use them as guidelines or as a means of pushing policy that affects all of us. There's a reason why a lot of us in this community preach doing your homework, and this is one of the very reasons that we do that. One week it's wine's good for heart health, and then next week it's alcohol's bad for you, and eggs are good for you, eggs are bad for you. Well, 2 eggs a day are okay, but not 3. Well, 1 egg a day is okay. Well, egg whites are better. You shouldn't eat the egg yolks. how is anybody to even come to any clarity of what to eat when we have all this nonsense going on? You can't keep changing the headlines every other week and expect people to fully understand, what the nutritional requirements are, what they should be eating, what they should not be eating, because most people aren't going to do the homework. They're not going to go and dig down into this to understand why they're getting all these conflicting headlines. And I have to call out the Harvard Nutritional database, because it's an epidemiological database, which is basically these food questionnaires, and it's the largest one in the world. And you can go in there and put in your search criteria and get any result that you're looking for, whether it be right or wrong. It doesn't matter, because you can go in there and do a search on people who eat 3 cheeseburgers a day. And if you set the parameters correctly, it's going to come back and say, well, people that eat 3 cheeseburgers a day live longer, healthier lives than people who eat omelets every day. But what they don't talk about is, okay, what lifestyle did the people who eat the cheeseburgers have? Did they exercise? Did the egg people exercise? Did they smoke? Did they drink excessively? We don't know these things. And because you can go in there and set these parameters, you can get any result you want. So I don't really put any credibility to any study that comes out that associates itself with a Harvard database. And you probably shouldn't either, but that's up to you. So what do we do moving forward? How do we fully understand the nutritional implications of the food that's available to us today? Because let's face it, the food we have today is not the same food we had 100 years ago. 100 years ago, we didn't have all these chemicals. We didn't have the GMOs, barely had any pesticides. Our soil was healthier, so our food was more nutrient dense. And so you can't really compare apples to apples when you're looking at some of this food. And in fact, some of the food we have didn't even exist back then, like iceberg lettuce. That was invented in the 1930s by the Burpee Seed Company. So people prior to that, they didn't eat it. Most people were meat and potatoes, kind of diet people. They might have had a few other things in there. Fruits were in season. Honey was when they could find it. Sugar was so expensive that they actually kept it under lock and key. It was more expensive than gold. So to try and say, well, we're eating the same thing they ate back then, but we have all these health issues. Well, it's not the same food. Even our flour is different because we've hybridized it with 2 species of wheat that would never have cross-pollinated in the wild because they're on separate continents. So how can you know what the implications of this new food that virtually everyone is consuming in excess is going to have on the human body? And I think we're seeing that now with a lot of the ailments that are coming out that didn't exist, even 20 years ago. And the prevalence of things like IBS and Crohn's is just through the roof. ADHD, that's another one. Autism, that's another one. And I know there's a lot of talk about autism being linked to vaccines, and it could very well be, but could it possibly be a reaction between the food we're eating and the vaccines? Because the mother is consuming these foods, which means when she gets pregnant, the fetus is going to inherit whatever she had. So I don't know that there's a definitive in that that can 100% link just the vaccine to the autism spectrum. It may very well be, but it may also be a combination of environmental issues, nutritional issues, and the vaccine all combined. But when you're reading these headlines, you really have to pay attention and see where the data is coming from. And I would wager to guess that probably 98% of these studies that come out, it's all based on these questionnaires. And if you're basing your lifestyle, your health, your diet, and nutrition on these so-called studies, you're setting yourself up for some serious issues. And we see it time and time again. And that's why people come to this diet or even the ketogenic diet to get clean, get rid of the garbage, because they've figured out that what these studies are recommending and what policies the government is pushing based on these studies is not accurate, not by any stretch of the imagination. If you know somebody that follows these headlines and tries to tailor their lifestyle based on these headlines, you might want to share this video with them. It just might wake them up to the fact that they're following flawed data that could be affecting their health. So what do you think? Should we keep using these questionnaires to try and form policy? Or should we try to figure out a way to get randomized control studies so we really understand the implications of diet and nutrition as it relates to our modern food supply? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it enlightened you a little bit. Have a great day.